Welcome to our deep dive into the life and work of Maria Homscheid.
Hmm.
She was a German author who really captured the spirit of her home region, the Siegerland, in her writing.
The Siegerland.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got her collection of poems, Erzfunken, to explore, and it's going to be interesting to see how her experiences shaped her work.
You know, it's fascinating, isn't it, how someone's life can so directly influence their art?
Hmm.
In Homscheid's case,
Yeah.
it's even more striking because she wasn't just writing about any region. She was writing about the place where she was born and
Right.
raised, the place she knew intimately.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just any kind of upbringing either.
Right.
She was born in Herdorf
Uh-huh.
in 1872,
Okay.
and as a young woman, she worked on a mining heap.
Wow.
They called them Haldenmädchen.
Haldenmädchen.
Literally mining heap girls.
Hmm.
You don't hear that every day.
No, you certainly don't.
Um,
It gives you a sense of the grit and determination that probably ran through her. Imagine working in those conditions surrounded by the remnants of the mining industry.
yeah.
It must have had a profound impact on her.
You can almost feel the dust and hear the machinery in your mind's eye,
Absolutely.
can't you?
Yeah.
It wasn't just a job. It was an experience that shaped her perspective on the world.
For sure.
And speaking of perspective,
Hmm.
we have this poem, Wo ich daheim, which translates to Where I Am at Home.
Right.
It's in her collection, Erzfunken,
Mm-hmm.
which means Or Sparks. Such a powerful title, don't you think?
It is.
It evokes the industrial heart of the Siegerland,
Right.
a region deeply tied to mining.
Yes.
And for Homscheid, those ore sparks could represent not just the industry itself, but the energy,
Right.
the spirit of the people who work there.
Absolutely.
A poem, Wo ich daheim, really captures that essence of belonging,
Yeah.
connection to the land and its history.
Of belonging.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not just a vague sense of place either.
Right.
She gets very specific right from the first stanza.
Shall we jump into the poem itself? Stanza by stanza, see what we can uncover.
Let's do it.
All right, the opening lines. At Hellerstrand is where I abide, where boldly the green mountains sway, the Siegerland they name with pride. We're immediately grounded in the Siegerland, right from the start.
And there's that word boldly, not just about the size of the mountains, is it?
No, it speaks to a deeper quality, a resilience in the landscape, and maybe even hinting at the people, too, shaped by the environment.
Interesting. It really sets the tone for the whole poem. Then it shifts. Logehek crowns each rolling crest with forests, wild blooms, and grain so fine, summer lures with heather's zest, and in the vale the herder's sign.
A bit more idyllic now, peaceful rural life, almost a contrast to the industrial side we know is developing at the time.
Do you think that contrast was intentional?
Oh, I think so. Homscheid wasn't ignoring the changes happening around her, but she acknowledges both the traditional and the new industry transforming a region.
Then bam, we hit the industrial reality head on. Their ore grows in stoic squares, iron marks the mountain's core. Through veins of lead and copper fares, in steel the shoulders bear the ore.
It's powerful. The language changes. Stark, metallic, stoic, iron, steel, unyielding, like the mining itself.
It was like,
Like even the mountains themselves are being mined for their very essence, their strength.
in steel the shoulders bear the ore. Is that a double meaning? The burden of progress on the region as a whole.
You're right on. There's definitely a weight there, literal and metaphorical. Physical labor of the miners and the impact of industry on everything. Like, progress itself is a heavy load to carry.
And she doesn't shy away from the harder aspects of that work. In secret greens, a mine's mouth weaves. Each cooler, darker tunnels start. Upon smooth ropes, as the day leaves, the miner sinks into the earth's heart.
That descent into the earth's heart. It's a powerful metaphor, don't you think? Leaving the light, the beauty of the surface world, to go into the darkness.
The danger inherent in that work. Sacrifices made to extract those riches hidden within the mountains.
Definitely. And then their work. Relentless. By day they toil, by night they glean. The bold miner's hand carves the stone. From depths untold and shafts unseen, they bring the mountain's good to lights alone.
Bold miner's hand. There's a real respect there.
Absolutely, not just workers, but figures almost heroic, carving the stone, bringing forth these valuable resources from the darkness, dignity in their labor.
Bold. That ties back to that earlier theme of resilience, doesn't it? Like facing the challenges head on. That's where true strength comes from.
Exactly. It's not romanticizing the work, but recognizing the courage, the determination it takes.
Then we get this. where fiery furnace flames do roar, the night sky by their glow is held, the hammers ring, the steel streams pour, in red flows iron, by fire compelled. Sensory overload.
It is. She paints a picture with words, sounds, sights, even the heat of the ironworks, flames, hammers, molten steel, industrialization in action.
Raw materials transformed into something new. But even with all this, she doesn't forget the people. Upon the heights, forges, and slopes, the joyous song of work rings true. There lives a folk with ancient hopes, true to old ways in all they do.
Crucial point. The people are more than just their labor, history, communities, and enduring spirit, embracing change without losing their identity.
Adaptable, resilient, leads us to that powerful ending. As strong as iron from their hills, and rich as their land's varied troves, my Siegerland, your praise fills. Luck be with thee, under God's alcoves.
A heartfelt declaration, strength of the Siegerland, the people, the natural resources, and that blessing, hope for her homeland's continued prosperity. That last stanza, it sums up the whole poem, really.
Yeah.
Strength, richness, that deep love for the Siegerland.
But it's not just a simple celebration either, is it?
Yeah.
It's complex, like those lines about the mines, the furnaces. Awe-inspiring, but
foreboding, too, yeah.
definitely. There's a darkness underneath. Like she knows progress, this industrialization comes with a price, makes you think about what she truly thought of those changes.
And it connects to what we face now, right? Environmental consequences. Like she's reminding us to think long-term.
Exactly. Her work feels so relevant even today.
The struggle to balance progress with preservation. A universal human experience, when you say. How to embrace change but still honor the old ways? As relevant now as it was back then.
Totally.
What do you think,
Yeah.
as you read this poem and learn about her life?
Mm.
What stands out to you about that connection to place?
What strikes me is how much she packs into those simple lines.
Mm-hmm.
She's not just describing scenery. She's evoking a whole feeling, a sense of belonging and identity.
Oh, yeah.
And you're right, that connection doesn't fade even when she moves away. It's like those mountains and that river are etched into her soul.
I see.
And speaking of her brother Albert,
Mm-hmm.
he went on to become the first honorary citizen of Herdorf in 1951.
Wow.
That's a remarkable detail, isn't it? It shows how deeply the Homscheid family was woven into the fabric of Herdorf.
Hmm.
It must have been a source of pride for Maria, even though she passed away in 1948. It's like this circle closing this recognition of their family's importance to the town. And it makes you think about the contrast between the beauty she describes in her poem and the reality of life in Herdorf at that time.
Yeah.
We're talking about a mining town,
Right.
a place where life was tough, where people worked hard for everything they had.
Those Erzfunken, those ore sparks weren't just a visual image. They represented the sweat, the toil, the danger that miners faced every day.
Right.
Her writing, especially in this collection, is a tribute to that resilience, to the spirit of the people who made their lives in that challenging environment.
It wasn't all sunshine and roses, that's for sure.
Mm.
And it makes you wonder how she viewed that world, having experienced it herself.
Right.
Did she see the beauty amidst the hardship?
Mm-hmm.
Or was there a sense of melancholy knowing the cost of those Erzfunken?
That's a question we might explore further as we delve deeper into her work. But keep in mind, she started writing in 1905.
Okay.
Germany was changing rapidly at that time. Industrialization was transforming the landscape and the way people live.
There were anxieties about the future, a sense of loss for the old ways.
And those themes are definitely present in her work, wouldn't you say?
I think so.
She's not just describing a static world. She's capturing a moment in time,
Mm-hmm.
a period of transition and uncertainty.
Exactly. And her own life reflects that transition.
Yeah.
She moves from the rural world of Herdorf
Yeah.
to more urban settings. She becomes a writer, an observer of these changes.
Right.
And later, of course, she faces even greater challenges with the rise of the Nazi regime
Yeah.
and the censorship of her work in 1933.
That's a heartbreaking chapter in her story, and it makes her work even more poignant.
Absolutely.
Imagine being silenced, having your voice taken away during your prime creative years.
Yeah.
But even in the face of that adversity, she
Right.
continued to write. Her spirit wasn't broken, and her work has endured, resonating with readers long after her death.
It's a testament to the power of art, wouldn't you say? The ability to connect with people across time and space.
Yeah,
Speak to something universal in the human experience.
absolutely.
And that's something we see throughout her work, not just in Erzfunken, but also in her novels and short stories. She wrote about a range of topics, from life in the Siegerland to stories set in monasteries and
Yes.
even tales of princes.
It's impressive, isn't it?
It is.
How diverse her subjects were. It shows a real breadth of imagination.
Yeah.
But there's always that thread of connection to her roots, to the landscapes and the people she knew so well.
Yes.
And that's something we'll continue to explore as we delve deeper into Erzfunken and the world of Maria Homscheid.
Absolutely. It's amazing how, even though we're focusing on just one collection, Erzfunken, there's still so much to uncover about Maria Homscheid and the world she brought to life in her writing. What do you think, as we look at some other poems from this collection, what are you hoping to find?
Well, we've already gotten a strong sense of her connection to Herdorf and the Siegerland region,
Right.
especially through that first poem, daheim.
But Erzfunken is full of other poems, each offering a glimpse into different aspects of her life and the time she lived in. I'm curious to see how those themes of place, identity, and change continue to emerge.
I think that's a great approach. Each of these poems is like a little window into her world, and as we look through them, we can start to piece together a richer picture of who she was and what mattered to her.
Right.
For instance, there's one called Das alte Haus, which means the old house.
Okay.
It's about a dilapidated building once full of life, now standing empty and almost forgotten.
That immediately piques my interest. I always find something so compelling about old buildings, the stories they hold within their walls.
Right.
What do you think drew her to write about an old house like that?
I think it speaks to her fascination with memory, with the traces of the past that linger in the present.
Right.
She uses incredibly vivid imagery to bring this old house to life.
Yeah.
She talks about the fading inscription above the door, the crumbling walls, the garden overgrown with weeds. But then she contrasts those images with memories of the laughter and song that once filled the rooms. The children playing in the courtyard, the sunbeams dancing on the floor.
It's like she's layering time, showing us how the past and the present coexist in a single space, and those details, the inscription, the laughter, they create such a strong sense of atmosphere of a life that was once lived there. It's almost like a ghost story, but not in a spooky way, more like a bittersweet reflection on the passage of time and the things we leave behind.
You've hit on a key theme there. It's not just about the physical structure of the house, it's about the stories held within those walls, the people who lived and loved there. And by writing about it, she's preserving those memories, ensuring that they don't fade completely into oblivion.
That makes me think about the historical context again. We've talked about the rapid changes happening in Germany at that time, the industrialization, the social upheaval. And then later on, she experienced the rise of the Nazi regime and the suppression of voices that didn't align with her ideology. It's like she's fighting against that erasure in her own quiet way by giving voice to the forgotten, to the places and the people that might otherwise be lost to time.
That's a powerful way to look at it.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about how relevant that idea is even today. We're constantly bombarded with new information, new technologies, and sometimes it feels like the past is being swept away.
Right.
But Homscheid's work reminds us to pause, to look back, to remember the stories that came before us.
It's like she's saying, don't forget where you came from.
Uh-huh.
And by honoring the past, we gain a deeper understanding of who we are in the present. Okay, I'm definitely adding Das alte Haus to my reading list.
Yeah.
Are there any other poems in Erzfunken that you think would resonate with this listener?
Absolutely. There's one called Der Flüger, which means the plowman.
Okay.
It's a beautiful tribute to the hard work and dedication of those who work the land. It's full of vivid imagery describing the plowman as one with the soil, his hands calloused, his brow furrowed from years of labor.
Ooh, I love that imagery.
Yeah.
It's so tactile, so grounded. It makes me think of those classic paintings of farmers in the field, the sun beating down the sweat on their brow. You can almost feel the weight of the plow, the resistance of the earth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she doesn't shy away from the physicality of it, the toll it takes on the body. But there's also a sense of nobility in her portrayal of the plowman. She describes the rhythmic clang of the plowshare and the steeds straining as they pull the heavy implement. It's like she's elevating this work, showing its importance, its essential role in the cycle of life.
That's interesting because, again, we have to consider the context of the time. This is a period of rapid industrialization with factories and mines springing up and people moving away from rural areas to find work in cities. It makes you wonder if she's consciously celebrating a way of life that was being threatened, a connection to the land that was in danger of being lost.
I think you're right on the mark there. And it ties back to that title, Erzfunken. We've talked about those ore sparks representing the industry.
Right.
The sweat and toil of the miners.
Right.
But with Der Flüger, we also have these sweat sparks of a different kind, the exertion of the plowman, the effort required to coax life from the earth. She's placing those two forms of labor side by side, showing their equal value, their importance to society.
It's like she's reminding us that even amidst all the change, all the progress, there are certain things that remain essential. The land still needs to be worked. The food still needs to be grown. And the people who do that work, the plowmen, the farmers, they deserve our respect and admiration. It's a powerful message, especially coming from someone who witnessed firsthand the impact of industrialization on her home region.
And I think it speaks to a broader theme that runs through her work. The importance of connection.
Connection.
Connection to place, connection to the past, connection to the natural world. These are the things that ground us, that give us a sense of belonging and purpose. And in a world that was becoming increasingly fragmented and uncertain, those connections were more important than ever.
That resonates with me, especially in today's world, where so many of us feel disconnected, adrift in a sea of information and technology. Her work offers a reminder to slow down, to appreciate the simple things, to find beauty in the everyday.
And to recognize the value of those who work with their hands, who create something tangible and essential. She's not romanticizing it. She knows the hard work involved. But she's also showing us the dignity, the beauty, the deep connection that can come from that kind of labor. It makes me wonder what stands out to you about the way she portrays work in her poetry.
I'm struck by the respect she shows for the people who do it. Whether it's the miners toiling underground, the plowmen in the field, or even the women working on the mining heaps. She elevates their efforts, shows the importance of their contributions to society, and she does it without sentimentality, without shying away from the harsh realities of those jobs. It's a very grounded, very human perspective.
I agree. And that groundedness, that human perspective, is what makes her work so relatable even across generations. She's not preaching or moralizing. She's simply observing, reflecting, and inviting us to see the world through her eyes. And in those eyes, we see compassion, empathy, and a deep appreciation for the beauty that can be found even in the most ordinary corners of life.
Okay, before we move on, I have to ask, is there another poem in Erzfunken that you think we should explore? I'm really enjoying this journey through her work. I'm curious to see what else we might discover.
You know, there's one more that I think is particularly relevant to our conversation.
Right.
One that brings together a lot of the themes we've been discussing. Memory place and the search for peace amidst hardship. It's called Im Sommermittag, which translates to In the Summer Afternoon. It's a shorter poem, but it's packed with layers of meaning.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lead the way. Let's see what Erzfunken, or sparks, this poem might ignite for us. All right, so we're diving into Im Sommermittag.
Right.
In the summer afternoon.
Yes.
You mentioned it's a shorter poem, but with layers of meaning. That definitely piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, let's hear the poem first.
Okay.
It'll give you a better sense of what we're dealing with. It reads, In the cellar mountains work before my eyes, the sun's midday in the summer mountains. In bliss I rest from the valley. Still it is, and sunny, only the wind sweeps softly through the trees, rocking on the treetops. Security embraces me, blissfully in the gentle shadow of peace.
So what do you make of that, just on a first impression?
Even without delving too deep yet.
Okay.
That contrast jumps out at me in the cellar mountains work.
Yeah.
Right away, she places us in this scene where labor is happening, but it's almost hidden, like, beneath the surface. Then immediately we shift to this peaceful image, the sun's midday in the summer mountains. It's like she's holding these two realities in tension.
Exactly. You've picked up on something crucial there. It's not just that there's work happening elsewhere while the speaker rests, those cellar mountains themselves. The phrasing, it suggests something oppressive, heavy. Almost like the very landscape is burdened by this unseen labor.
And that makes the speaker's experience even more striking. In bliss, I rest from the valley.
There's such a sense of relief, of escaping that weight, even if just for a moment. And she uses these beautiful sensory details to paint the scene. The wind in the trees, the sunlight, this feeling of being embraced by the peacefulness of it all. It makes you want to be there right alongside her, soaking it all in.
It does, doesn't it? But think about how fleeting this moment might feel. Knowing that the cellar mountains are still there. The speaker is aware of that, even as she enjoys the respite. It's like she's savoring this peace all the more because she knows it's not permanent.
It makes you wonder about Maria Homscheid herself, her own life experiences. She knew what it was like to work in those conditions, to feel that weight. But she also found beauty in nature, in the simple act of being present in a moment of peace. Do you think this poem is reflecting that duality, that struggle between hardship and finding joy in the small things?
Absolutely. And it's not just about her personal experience either. Remember, this collection was published in 1913, just a few years before World War I. Right.
There's a shadow looming over Europe at this time, a sense of unease that even this gentle shadow of peace can't fully erase.
Knowing that adds another layer to it, doesn't it? It's like she's capturing a moment of tranquility, of holding on to it tightly, even as the world around her is teetering on the brink of chaos. And then to think about what she faced later on with the Nazi regime and the censorship of her work, it makes this poem even more poignant.
It really does. It raises the question, how do we find peace even when surrounded by hardship? How do we appreciate the beauty of the present moment, knowing that darkness might be on the horizon?
Right.
These are questions that Homscheid grapples with throughout her work, and they're questions that resonate with us even today.
They do, don't they? And I think that's part of the reason why her work continues to be relevant.
Absolutely.
She's not just about her specific time and place. It's about something deeper, something universal in the human experience, this desire for connection, for meaning, for finding those moments of peace amidst the chaos.
It's something we all relate to.
Exactly. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Maria Homscheid and Erzfunken, what do you think is the most important thing for our listener to take away from this? What's the spark that we want to ignite?
For me, it's the power of observation.
Oh.
The ability to look at the world around us, even the ordinary, even the difficult parts,
Right.
and find beauty, find meaning, find stories worth telling.
Yeah.
That's what Homscheid did, and her work continues to inspire us to do the same.
And not just to observe, but to remember. To honor the past, to hold on to the stories that shape us, and to share them with others. In a world that's constantly pushing us to forget, to move on to the next thing. Her work is a powerful reminder to slow down, to appreciate the small things, and to find the extraordinary in the everyday.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And I hope this deep dive has inspired our listener to seek out Maria Homscheid's work, to explore her world, and discover their own Erzfunken or sparks along the way.
I hope so too. Until next time.